Builties, how's it going? We wanted to cut in, do a little housekeeping before we start this next interview. I want to remind everybody we're more than just podcast hosts. We're active brokers. We have a bunch of off-market deals, and we would love nothing more than to do deals with our listeners. So please reach out. We have relationships with developers, investors, and all the leaders shaping the built environment here in South Florida. The podcast is growing, guys. We really appreciate your support. We got thousands of listeners now, growing at double-digit % every month. And we're still offering advertising opportunities. So if anyone wants to advertise with us, please reach out to me or Felipe. Happy to walk you guys through what that looks like. And we're doing a coffee club.
Yeah, Ben, we are doing a coffee club. It's more than a coffee club. It's the Built World Cafecito Club. We're going to get together in person with hopefully all our listeners and some of our podcast guests. We're going to start our first one on May 9th. We're planning to do this every second Friday at 9 a.m. at Maman in Wynwood. So stop on by. We start at 9-ish. That's Miami time. So be sort of on time, I guess.
Yeah, that works. Don't be too early. Don't be weird.
Yeah. But don't be too late, too.
Exactly.
We got to get to work.
You guys know what it is.
So no sales pitches, no panels, just real talk. And we hope to meet some of our listeners and connect the dots with a bunch of people here in South Florida.
Yeah, let's do it, guys. Let's do some deals together. Let's build what's next together. We also got to mention the Built World is hitting the road. We're heading to the ULI Florida Summit on June 9th and 10th. It's going to be at the Hyatt Regency in Coconut Point in Bonita Springs. This is one of the great events for real estate development in the state, where they're going to have over 600 industry leaders there. We'll be there in the mix, doing some breakout sessions, recording some podcasts, kissing babies, shaking hands, talking real estate. So if you guys are going to attend, reach out, let us know. We'd love to connect while we're there. And if you're curious, you can find more info and register for the event at florida.uli.org. So we'll be dropping some content from the summit, for stay tuned. See you guys in Bonita Springs.
Love it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Before we get into this next guest, we wanted to give a huge thank you to all of our guests, listeners, and advertisers for all of your support. Please spread the Built World love by leaving us a review, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, and subscribe to the show. We drop a new episode every Tuesday and plan to keep them coming. This next episode is brought to you by Bureau, our title sponsor. With 8 vibrant locations in Miami's best neighborhoods, Bureau is the perfect co-working place to work, network, and thrive alongside other entrepreneurs and creatives. Find your space at bureaumiami.com. Let's go.
I've got a face for radio.
Ben and I say the same thing.
Always. How are these old fashions? Well, David, thanks for coming down. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, David.
L'chaim, boys.
Really
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're a legend in Miami in a lot of ways.
It's for others to say, not me.
Living local legend.
Yeah. So super excited to talk to you. Have you had a chance to listen to the podcast before?
I listened to the one with the gentleman who was born in Israel.
Miki Naftali?
No, he's
Isaac.
with Related.
Isaac, yeah.
Isaac Toledano.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was very interesting.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we really want to get to know you.
Sure.
We want to learn your story and share your story with our listeners. So I take it you're from New York? Or your parents?
Originally.
Yeah.
But I moved here when I was 7 years old.
Okay, where are your parents from originally?
Well, my mother was from the Bronx.
Okay. You got the Bronx accent
And
still?
my father was from a small island off the coast of Naples called Ischia.
Okay.
But he died when I was 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
I'm an only child. My mother was a secretary her whole life. And we moved to Miami Beach when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
And I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment with my mother my entire childhood.
Where on Miami Beach?
First in Normandy Isle, and then behind the Hebrew Academy High School at 2450 Flamingo Place.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were a single child raised by a single mother. Did your mom ever get remarried?
A couple of times, but it never worked out. She was very difficult.
Yeah. I hope she's not listening to this.
She passed away 7 years ago, but she's listening.
Wow. So that must have been, what was it like growing up without a dad? I mean, you probably you don't remember your dad for number one.
You don't know the difference.
Yeah, you don't.
But when I would go to friends' houses, and you see, I went to Hebrew Academy until 10th grade and then Beach High.
Okay.
So in those days, the kids that I was in school with were some of the wealthiest families in Miami. And I would go to their houses and I would just be in awe. One house in particular was the Lapchooks. They lived on the west point of Sunset Island 1, a Mediterranean mansion. And I'm a very visual person ever since I'm young. And the house used to blow my mind, and I would go home and cry. Why can't I live in a house like that?
Yeah.
And then, thank God, at the age of 30, I was able to move onto that island
Very cool.
through a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
I was very determined to get there one day.
So, in growing up, your mom, what was her profession?
She was a secretary at Israel Bonds
Okay.
for about 26 years. And when she retired, I saw she was bored. You know, she wasn't one with a lot of friends. And I brought her into my office in Wynwood. And these were the early days of Wynwood, 2003, 2002, 2000. She stayed with me 17 years. She became kind of a de facto mother to all my tenants, because when they'd come in to pay the rent, she would talk with them, ask them how things are going, and she gave everybody a candy and a bottle of water.
That's great.
And she's been gone 7 years, and to this day, some of my tenants who are still with me, talk about my mother all the time.
That's awesome.
And now we just created a co-working space, like we're in a co-working space here, and we call it the Doris Den, and it's under our Seminole building on 25th Street. And we broke ground in December on a new 8-story boutique office building right next door to where she worked in my old office on 25th Street, on an 8-story boutique office building called the Doris. And the name came about because my kids, who all work with me, all 3 of them, I said, I got a great name for this project. We're going to call it Officino Wynwood. And they're like, oh, no way. I said, well, what do you guys want to call it? And they said, the Doris. I was finished.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. So going back to, so you went to elementary school on the beach and high school.
Yes.
Did you, what were you interested in as a kid? Were you into sports?
Architecture,
Architecture?
real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played every sport.
Well,
You know,
were you good at
When
any
you're
of
a
them?
short Jew, you
Yeah.
can't be that good at anything. But I did my best
Yeah.
because I'm half Italian, so I would fight a lot.
So your dad is Italian?
He was Italian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
He's born off the coast of Naples. He's
Yeah.
Yeah.
not Naples, Florida.
Yeah.
Ischia.
Italy. Yeah.
Ischia.
Yeah.
If you haven't been there, the most beautiful
Yeah.
island.
So you played all the different sports, and when did you realize you liked architecture?
When I started smoking weed with a friend of mine, Scott DeVeck,
How old were you?
15.
Okay.
He was older. He could drive. And we would skip school, get stoned, and drive around Miami looking at the deco buildings, the porthole windows, the eyebrows, the streamlined architecture. We'd stumble into the Saxony, the Deauville, back then the Americana. These were Morris Lapidus buildings.
And so what were you doing? You were going into these buildings
Just
and
look
just
around.
checking things out.
I loved the floors.
Yeah.
I loved it all.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's beautiful, right? Like it's so gorgeous. And what a place to, it's few places like Miami Beach where someone as young as you, right, can really appreciate architecture because I mean, a lot of places in the US don't have this rich history of architecture like Miami Beach does.
Right, especially in such a short span of time. What's been created and built here has been amazing. And when I was in high school, you have to remember there was no Art Deco district
Yeah.
as we know it today. All the buildings were brown or beige, and all of the old people would come to die and sit on the porches. So it was a whole different look. But we used to drive around and say, my God, these buildings are so interesting, but nobody's doing anything with them.
So you're 15, you're checking out these buildings. Do you go to college?
So I went to Miami-Dade for 2 years. And in that time, I started selling froze fruit popsicles on the public beach next door to the Eden Rock.
Okay.
And then I started picking up wholesale accounts all the way from Palm Beach down to Kendall. I had 168 stores I was selling to.
Wow.
And after 2 years at Miami-Dade, I was making a lot of money doing that. And I held off going to FIU.
Was that your first hustle?
Yeah,
the popsicle hustle?
Prior to that, yes. But I was a bag boy in Publix at 15.
Okay.
I was a pool boy at the Doral at 16. And then I was at the Alexander Hotel from the time I was 17 to 19 as a room service waiter. And that was an incredible experience because I used to bring an entrepreneurial spirit to that job where I would come in 3 o'clock shift and I'd check the guest list and I'd look for people I knew from before, repeat guests. I'd have the garde manger make a fruit basket and I'd bring it up to them. And they'd always tip me $20, $30. Nice to see you again. Welcome back. If there's anything you need. So I was making $800 a week at 17 years old, living at home.
What year was this, more or less?
85.
Yeah. I mean, South Beach in that time
85.
was pretty rough, right? Like,
Yes,
it was.
it was just starting.
Yeah.
The first thing that ever happened there was the Carlisle Hotel did a piano bar in the lobby, and they painted the building light pastel colors. And I was calling my uncles, my mother's brothers in New York, saying, listen, come down here. We got to invest in real estate. And they used to tell me, it's shit. It was always shit. It'll always be shit.
Yeah.
And literally 5-6 years later, I was wealthier than them
Wow.
because I figured out how to buy a building.
You saw it coming.
I saw it coming. I scraped together my savings. I bought a building in Calais Drive in Normandy Isle.
You know, Felipe, ever since we moved into Bureau, my productivity has been through the roof. I mean, I might actually be getting things done for once.
The energy at Bureau just makes work fun. Plus, with 8 locations across South Florida, from South Miami all the way to Hollywood, there's no excuse for not finding a spot to get your shit done, Ben.
And we're not alone. Over 500 local companies call Bureau home. Everything from creative agencies and real estate firms to tech startups, law firms, and media companies. It's a melting pot of brilliant people, and we don't include ourselves in that category.
We definitely don't include ourselves in that category. Bureau really has space for anyone, whether you're flying solo or have a team. There are suites starting at 100 square feet all the way up to 2,000 square feet. They also don't try to lock you into long-term agreements, and everything is month to month.
Let's not forget the important stuff either. The coffee is top tier, staff is incredible, and has a very entrepreneurial vibe. It's not just a workspace. It's a place where work actually gets done.
That's right, Ben. So if you want to level up your workday like we try to do every day, check out Bureau. You might even catch us sipping some espressos between podcast sessions.
Or tequila.
Definitely tequila.
Tell Bureau the Built World sent you, and you'll get 50% off your first month's membership. See you out there. Cheers.
Later. How did you see it coming? What were the early indicators that things on Miami Beach were likely to, change drastically?
Well, those years leading up, my friend and I, a few friends, we used to always...
These are the guys you were smoking weed with?
Yeah. We used to say, this is insane.
Yeah.
Lincoln Road was like a mortuary science experiment. It was like a row of warehouses next to the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
Then you go to Ocean Drive and you see these beautiful buildings that were all brown and beige, Heaven's Waiting Room, but it's across the street from the beach.
Yeah.
And we said, this can't stay like this for long. And then when the Carlisle did that, there was a group, I forget the name of their group, they bought the Carlisle, the Cardoza, the Leslie, and a couple of other buildings, and they started painting them and doing the live music in the lobby and opened a restaurant in the Cardozo. That was light bulb moment for me. I said, this is all going to be like this.
Yeah. Wow. And you were how old at that point? 17?
17.
Dang. That's impressive to have that kind of vision, seeing. I mean, it is. I mean, you're young, it's not something most 17-year-olds would figure out.
No, I mean, we were smoking weed when we were 17, but I was just trying to go snowboarding. I wasn't spotting national real estate trends.
Well, you see, I was very motivated from the start because when you grow up with a single mother in a one-bedroom apartment and you're surrounded by wealthy, friends, you have a motivation. And my mother used to tell me, you got to work hard, you got to make money, you got to take care of me when I'm old. And that was always beating in my head. And when I'd visit these kids and their fathers were so disconnected or unfriendly, I used to say to myself, if that schmuck could be this rich, so could I. and that was kind of my mantra.
Yeah.
Served you well.
So far. Thank you.
So 17, you drop out of Miami-Dade College when you're 19.
I actually finished.
You finished?
I got 2 years there. I actually started one semester at FIU and
Okay, so you got an associate's degree.
yes.
And then FIU, you were in 1 year at FIU, one
Yes.
semester at FIU?
One semester in business administration.
And then what happened? Then you were like, you started making
I was
money.
selling popsicles. I was making $1,200-1,300 a week selling popsicles. And then a competitor, another wholesaler, offered me, I think it was like $35,000-40,000 for the route. So I sold him the route. At 20, I bought an apartment building with my friend Scott at 2200 Calais Drive, 6-unit building. His father co-signed the seller's loan to us. We got
How much did you pay for the building? You remember?
$123,000 for
So you said you made $30,000 on selling the
on selling the route.
Yeah.
Had another $20,000 saved up, and his dad matched me on the downstroke, and we bought it with owner financing.
how much did you guys put down?
I think it was 20%.
Okay.
At the time. And then all the units needed renovating. So I told Scott's dad, he was sending his handyman, Otto. I said, tell Otto not to bring a helper. I'll be his helper. Because by then I was cooking. I wanted to become a chef. So I went to the Pavillon Hotel, which you would know as the Intercontinental. And
The one downtown?
right downtown.
Yeah.
Back then, it was a 5-star, major, beautiful hotel. And I met the chef, and I told him I've been a room service waiter, but I really want to learn how to cook. He goes, I don't understand. He goes, you're a Jewish guy from Miami Beach, and you want to cut vegetables? I said, yes, sir. I want to learn knife skills and work my way up.
Yep,
So
chef.
it was me and 12 Haitians in the Garde Manger banquet kitchen. And I was chopping vegetables every day for months. But I would go in the afternoon, and in the mornings, I would be Otto's helper at the building. Because I didn't have a father, I never knew how to use tools, nothing. I learned how to hang doors, lay linoleum, repaint apartments, et cetera, and we ended up renovating the units, getting better tenants, higher rents. And then my friend's father, after a year, said to me he had to do an exchange. Would I sell my share for double what I had in? So I said, sounds fair to me, and I took the deal. And the same man, Norman, used to take me around looking at buildings. So I learned a lot from him on how to look at buildings. And he came to Scott and I one afternoon. Now, at this time, I was about 21. I was engaged to be married. And he said his building on Arthur Godfrey Road, 726, the bottom floor was going to vacate. It was an office supply store. Do you and Scott want to open a business? So we got stoned and we came up with the 41st Street Eatery. And in one night of being wasted, I came up with the whole menu, the concept. And at 22, right after I got married, we opened the 41st Street Eatery. We built it out. And I was living upstairs on the 3rd story walk-up, looking at North Beach Elementary, where my wife became a teacher at that time.
That's amazing. Was the 41st Street Eatery like a food hall or was it a restaurant? What was the concept?
Simple 40-seat restaurant, big salads, deli sandwiches, and a char grill. because in that year and a half, I worked up from Grand Manger Banquet to sous chef. So I really could cook. And I used to do 130 lunches by myself
Dang.
from 11:30 to 2 o'clock every, Monday to Friday. And had the restaurant for 4 years. In that time period, we had 2 sons. And I came home one night and my wife says to me, "You don't get rid of that restaurant, I'm getting rid of you." She goes, "You're a maniac. It's killing us. And it's just, you're never home, et cetera, et cetera." The greatest thing she could have ever said to me. Thank God.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, what did I want to do next? And let me know if I'm rambling on.
No, it's really a cool story.
All right. So I started thinking that the next chapter for me, now I'm 26, right? I wanted to go into something that would only take me to make it work. Because in a restaurant, I had 9 employees, hated them. They didn't care. They show a plate, they don't give a shit, whatever. And I wanted to have low overhead, low startup cost, but the most important factor was unlimited potential. And I knew every realtor in town because I was feeding them
At the
eatery.
restaurant. Yep.
And they seemed like a happy lot. And I loved architecture and the built world, as you put it. And I thought this might be a good career for me. And I sold the restaurant and I hung my license with a guy named Gary Lynn. And I was selling real estate the next day.
Residential or commercial?
Residential. And, when you're used to working 80 to 90 hours a week, you have a work ethic.
Yeah.
I found if I put that work ethic to work in realty with the right training, my potential was unlimited. And fortunately, I went to a guy, Gary Lynn, who taught me the fundamentals. Like in baseball, you learn to throw, run, catch, and hit. He taught me about farming and cold calling and eating at a different restaurant every day for lunch and using my sphere of influence and past clients from the restaurant to get listings. And I did something else. I wanted to have realistic expectations. So I asked the top 5 realtors in Miami Beach at the time if I could meet with them.
And this year, what year are we talking now?
88,
Okay.
right? No, I'm sorry. 92.
All right.
92. So I met with Carlos Justo, Mary Framer, Donna Bloom, Esther Perkel, and I asked them, and Jill Hertzberg.
Yep.
And I said, what did you make your first year, second year, third year? How many years did it take you to get to where you were really rolling? And their answers were all pretty similar. 30,000 the first year, 45, 50 the second, double that the third. So I had a template by which to go by, and I did those. But what I did differently from them is my second year when I made 60, I emptied our bank account with my wife's permission and put that money down on a 6-unit building on 6th and Euclid. And then the third year when I made 100, I did it again, emptied the bank account, took 50,000 with my friend Jose Lambert. May he rest in peace. He matched me and we bought 930 10th Street.
You don't seem like you're a spendy guy at all. Like you weren't spending on fancy cars or anything of that sort.
None of that.
Fancy clothes.
No, none of that.
Yeah.
Look, I still
Yeah.
don't.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But that was the only way I knew to build wealth.
Yep.
Is that forced savings, throwing myself into situations where I had to make it work. And that was, then I was off to the races.
Yeah. So you started investing in multifamily on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you tend to hold on to them or?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I was taught by my friend's father, this is the slow man or woman's way to wealth, buying commercial property. And if you don't have to, don't ever sell. What he neglected to tell me was that there's a tax man when you buy residential real estate. They're not triple net tenants. And in 1999, I had 7 buildings on South Beach. The property tax bill came and it almost doubled. And it sucked out most of the profit of operating the buildings. So fortunately, at the same time, we couldn't buy any more apartment buildings because these condo converters had come into the market. And they weren't looking at income and expenses. They were buying it by the pound, selling it by the ounce. So they were willing to overpay. So I was shell-shocked by the tax bill, but I didn't knee-jerk and start selling right away. I just realized I needed to find another area and different product to start buying. Because at that time, I was selling the shit out of Miami Beach houses.
So you were still selling, you were still resi broker.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was like a whirling dervish.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have showings. I'd have 30 residential listings at a time on Miami Beach. So I'm constantly zipping around to show them all day long. Tenant would call with a problem. I'd run down there, check it, call my plumber, call my electrician, whatever I needed. I was doing it all.
And so by 1999, you said 2000, how many apartment buildings did you have and how many
7.
units? How many units?
112.
Okay. Wow.
And they were mainly on Pennsylvania Avenue,
Okay.
1526, 1034, 1026, 930.
So everything really close to each other. So the maintenance issues, like you could have your maintenance man go over there and knock everything out.
Yes.
So you had a concentration.
Exactly.
And
then most of the houses I'm selling were mid-beach.
yeah.
You know, from 29th Street up to 63rd.
Yeah.
And I was making a tremendous living, you know, 5, 6, 700,000 a year, which gave me money to keep buying. But now I couldn't compete on South Beach anymore with these condo converters. So I'm sitting home one afternoon on a rainy Saturday, and I get the call that changed my life. Dennis Peters. Dennis calls me up. He was a client and friend at the time. He says, "Take a ride with me, Lombardi. We're going to the fashion district." I'm like, "What's that?" He says, "You know, by the highway, south of the design district." Okay. My whole life growing up on Miami Beach to that point, since I was 7, I had never been west of North Miami Avenue.
Really?
So that day we went to 150 Northwest 24th Street, which most recently has been Racket nightclub, bar. But back then we walk in and it was an old Cuban man repairing boilers. And it had 20-foot ceilings with skylights, which I liked right away. And we're standing there. The place is filthy. It's a mess. And Dennis says to me, "What do you think?" I said, "I don't know what to think. What do you think?" He goes, "I think it's too cheap and I'm going to buy it." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? How much is it?" He goes, "How much would it cost to build this building?" It was 5,000 square feet. That I knew, 65 a foot back then. 3.25. He goes, "Well, this guy's ready to sell it to me for 125 with no land cost." He goes, "Too cheap. I'll figure out what to do with it later."
Ben, you know what they say in real estate, if people don't know you, they're not doing business with you.
Exactly. That's why the Built World podcast works with top of mind public relations, because being a best kept secret sure doesn't pay the bills.
Paula Uspa Abbott, the brains behind Top of Mind PR, is a former real estate journalist, so she knows exactly what makes the media pay attention.
And let's be real, getting in the press isn't just about bragging rights. It's about building credibility, landing deals, and making sure the right people know your name.
Whether it's top-tier media coverage, killer storytelling, or just making sure you're the one people think of first, Top of Mind PR has you covered.
Want to stand out? Hit up topofmind-pr.com or email info@topofmind-pr.com.
Because in real estate, if you're not visible, you're invisible.
So now I went home and now I'm titillated. All weekend I'm thinking about what he said. And on Monday I went back on my own and I started serpentining the streets. And I came to a few quick conclusions.
When
I
you,
like-
when you mean serpentine, were you actually walking or were you
No,
driving?
driving.
Just driving. It was too
Yeah.
dangerous to. Well, it wasn't really dangerous, right?
Yeah,
It was just
not dangerous.
industrial, but
Right. It was just, it was hot.
yeah.
You know, so I came to a few quick conclusions. I liked the scale of the buildings to the width of the streets. I thought it could be pedestrian friendly with the right kind of tenants. But I also thought, because recently I had sold a package of buildings on Lincoln Road to David Edelstein. This was in like 99, 2000.
So you were selling some commercial real estate as well.
I had gone to DACRA
Uh-huh.
and I was sitting next to a guy, may he rest in peace, Fran Clowerty. I don't know if you knew him.
No.
Amazing guy. And his client was David Edelstein. And one thing led to another. I end up knowing the, what would you call, managing member of a group that owned 3 buildings on Lincoln Road, and we transacted it. And what struck me was the rents were starting to rise on Lincoln Road. So when I looked at Wynwood, I said, you know, it might be advantageous to have a large concentration of cheap warehouse space in close proximity to the design district, downtown, and Miami Beach's retail, because as the rents were rising in those spaces, no longer could they afford to store their excess inventories in the back of their stores. They would need to make it all showroom
Yep.
and need storage. And I just started buying at $40 a square foot on that hypothesis. First 2 buildings on Miami Avenue, and 2 weeks after I closed on them, I had them both rented, covering my nut, contracted to buy 3 more. Before closing, I had them all rented.
Are you buying these yourself or with partners?
The same 2 partners I was buying buildings with on South Beach, 2 CPAs at the time, passive. I'm still partners with them to this day. It's 30 years.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And we've never had a fight, ever. You know, I like to say you can't make a good deal with bad people.
Yeah.
And these guys have been a dream.
So this was 94, 95, give or take?
No.
When we started with apartment,
Oh, got it. You said 30 years with that. But when were you started buying in Wynwood? Remind me of the
2000.
Okay. And were you buying with debt too? You were left
Yes.
20%
It
down?
was 25% down. It was very interesting. Gibraltar Bank at the time had given us a few loans on South Beach. So now I call this banker, Kathy Asen. Said, Kathy, we're under contract to buy these 2 warehouses.
Can I make you another drink, by the way?
Yeah, sure,
Yeah?
half.
All right.
Thanks. 10,000 square feet, $400,000, a prime corner on Miami Avenue. I said, we need 300,000. She goes, well, let me meet you over there and look at it. This woman had to be 5 foot 10 inches tall. So she's looking down at me, and it's Miami Avenue, you know, the big trucks are coming
Yep.
by, it's busy. She looks down at me and says, David, why? And I told her my hypothesis, and I told her, Kathy, you got to trust me. It's going to be great here. I promise you. She goes, we'll do just this one. Well, 3 years later, 3 years from the date of closing, when we paid $400,000, I flipped that piece for $1,280,000.
Wow.
So the 100 down became 900 and change. And then she called me after the closing and she said, whatever you want.
That's awesome. So that was on Miami Avenue in 25th?
2632 and
Okay.
2620.
And is that developed now? There's a bunch of buildings over there.
2632 is a bank
Okay.
of the Ozarks.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Because that whole corridor has changed so much in the last
Yeah.
5 years.
Yes. Thankfully, because now I'm fast forwarding to 11 years ago, myself and 6 other founding members created the Wynwood Business Improvement District. And our first order of business in 2013 was to create a zoning overlay with the city of Miami to increase the allowable units per acre from 65 to 150. And that's the result of what you're seeing now.
So from when you bought your first warehouse in Wynwood to when you started the bid, how long was that?
13 years.
13 years. And so in the meantime, you just kept accumulating more
Well,
buildings.
in the meantime, I created in 2007, along with Thea Goldman. She has a podcast. I don't know if you know her. She was Joey Goldman's wife way back. 2006, 7, we created with Tony the Wynwood Art District Association, WADA. And it was just a loose group of property owners and business owners to pool resources to do things like the promotional maps, clean and safe.
What year was this? I'm sorry?
2006, 7.
Was this when the Wynwood Art Walk started, more or less, or was that?
That was before. Wynwood Art Walk started before.
Okay, when did the Wynwood Art Walk start?
So I started doing something in 2002 called Roving Fridays in Wynwood. And at that time, there might have been 5 or 6 galleries. But what I was doing was taking any space I had vacant in an effort to bring eyes on it. I threw these art parties. And, you know, what I realized early on, where there were dozens of artists in the area, they had no gallery representation. They had no money, but what they do have is inventory. So I said, here's an empty space, 10,000 square feet. I hired a curator. His name was Dustin Orlando. He had a gallery called Objects. He curated the work, hung the show. I paid for a DJ and a band. Used to be DJ LaSpam and the All-Stars and Swainalo Sound System.
Remember them?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Itawi.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And Bacardi was giving me all the free booze I needed or wanted. They gave me bartenders, cups, stirrers, napkins, and all the booze. All I had to do was supply the ice.
Hold on, let me ask you a question. How did you get connected with Bacardi? Because that's interesting.
So I think that connection came about from a woman named Chrissy Morales. Chrissy Morales at the time was the city of Miami representative in Wynwood in what they called I got to remember the term. They had an office in Wynwood that she oversaw. I don't know if I'll remember the term right now, but Chrissy was good friends with the people at Bacardi, and she loved what I was doing. And I said, you know, it would be really great if we could get some booze for these parties. And she said, oh, she called up the lady. We went up to the Bacardi building up on the penthouse, and I told her what we were doing, warehouse artist parties. And she's like, oh, that's our demographic. We want to be involved.
That's so cool.
Yeah, very nice.
So that's how that was when the way the art walk started, was the...
Well, I was doing Roving Fridays every few months on a Friday night, and we'd be getting 400, 500, 600 people. And then the gallery started, you know, just kind of banding together, marketing together, and it just kind of happened on second Saturdays.
Were the galleries already there, or?
There were, when I got to Wynwood, this was really interesting.
Just to back this up, like, really, it's restaurateurs and artists are really like the first gentrifiers of a neighborhood, right? In a lot of ways.
Yes.
And so were there artists there already, or were you?
Yeah. So when I started buying under that premise of cheap warehouse space, one day I'm home after buying 5 buildings, and I'm reading the New Times, and it's talking about a guy who's living in the back of a warehouse, running a gallery in the front, and his name was Brooke Dorsch. So it said that his next opening was like 3 weeks from now on a Saturday night. He was on 24th Street, across from that first building I ever looked at, on Northwest First Avenue. And I went with my wife, and we go on a Saturday night, 8 o'clock. None of the street lamps are working. There's lots of junk cars along the street. There's mean dogs behind fences. And we park and walk to this building. And he has a red door with a little light over it. And when we opened that door, my whole thought process changed of what Wynwood could be. This is before the Roving Fridays. This was early. This was probably March or April of 2001. I walk into a space that had crisp white walls, beautiful lighting, and gorgeous artwork up on the walls, and 30 young people standing around drinking drinks, cocktails, talking about the art. Like, holy shit, this is what could happen. So I introduce myself to him, and he starts to tell me that there are dozens of artists in this neighborhood. You would never know it. Look, he had a gallery.
Yeah.
He didn't have a sign.
Yeah.
You would never know there was a gallery there
Yep.
if I hadn't read the article. And that's when I got involved with the artists and started going to the 3 galleries that existed, which was Locust Projects, Dorsch Gallery, and Dustin Orlando's Objects Art Space. He was on the 2nd floor of a building on 5th Avenue and 23rd. You'd never know. And all the skateboarders, that whole scene were up there. And I got involved with them, and it worked out.
That's so cool. That's such almost a New York story. When you see the door with the red light and nothing,
Yes.
and you're in a sketchy area, and
Totally.
that you enter that threshold, and the entire world changes when you walk in.
Right.
What a foreshadowing of what Wynwood would be, that experience.
So, the Wynwood Art Walks start more or less when then?
2000 and maybe 2
Okay.
to 3.
Okay.
See, Art Basel had a lot to do with that too.
When did Art Basel start?
So Art Basel originally was scheduled to be here December of 2001, but September 11th happened. And the international art insurance companies got very nervous about sending billions of dollars of artwork to the United States from Europe and elsewhere, so they postponed the show a year. So the first rendition of Art Basel was December of 2002. Now, Wynwood was nothing. We had the Rubel collection, we had the Margulies collections, but only the very highbrow art connoisseurs in the know and museum curators understood about those 2 collections being there. We had a few galleries, but they were meaningless. So the first 2 years, 2002 and 2003, Wynwood didn't get much. But by 2004, we started to become the dirty little secret across the bay. And people started coming. And Rubel was doing these interesting breakfasts for the collectors before they went to the show, which didn't open till like 11 or 12. So 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, Rubel was hosting hundreds of them with some funky art breakfast and talk, etc. So by 2004, we started to get recognition, and we started to get not just 6 or 7 galleries, but 20. It was really picking up speed. And back then, it was like the emperor's new clothes. Artists couldn't produce artwork fast enough in 2004, 2005, 2006. It was nuts. Every space, there was a gallery, pop-up or long-term, and they were selling art. People, it was a frenzy, a feeding frenzy.
Bubble behavior.
Yeah.
Well, that was that coincided with the real estate.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, where people had all this money, like, where am I going to stick it? I'm going to stick it in real estate and art.
Right.
Art's easier to manipulate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very familiar with art because another aha moment happened for me in December of 2006. I was invited to a talk at the Delano Hotel by AXA Art Insurance. And they were talking about the trials and tribulations of keeping artwork safe in this environment. Because by 2006, Basel had been here 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, and a lot of their biggest clients had come to the show, saw Miami, liked it, bought a waterfront house, waterfront condo, moved very expensive artwork into these homes or condos, and the insurers were very nervous about how much exposure they might have.
All right, I'm hesitant to even share this next sponsor because honestly, it's going to make our competition even tougher. This is some real insider intel.
Yeah, if you're in commercial real estate and still buried in spreadsheets and busy work, listen up, because CRE Task Wizard is about to change your life. It changed ours.
This isn't some generic virtual assistant service. CRE Task Wizard was founded by former brokers Elijah and Kevin, so they actually get what brokers need.
Which is less admin, more deal making. Your teams handle research, data entry, listing management, lease abstracts, basically all the annoying stuff that eats up your day and nobody likes to do.
Imagine not having to update listings, dig through lease terms ever again. Even cold calling, you can focus on closing deals. They handle the rest.
And the best part, it's efficient, affordable, and built specifically for CRE brokers.
Want to reclaim your time and make more money? Go to CRETaskWizard.com and let the wizard work its magic.
Oh, yeah.
So they they hired some consultants called Global Risk Partners out of New York to develop a criteria by which all art storage facilities around the world would now be rated by. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, I'm a warehouse guy in the middle of an international arts destination. I wonder, where are people storing art in Miami? And coincidentally, I owned an acre of land on 29th Street at the time that I had no idea what the hell I was going to do with it, in between 3rd and 5th Avenues. So I went home, I started Googling art storage, Miami. The only place that kept coming up was this place called The Fortress, which is on like Northeast 1st Ave.
It's an Omni, right?
Yeah, on the CRA.
Yeah.
And it's a corrugated metal building.
Blue, I think, right?
Yeah, with
Yep.
a rotating carousel inside.
Oh, cool.
So I went over there and played dumb and said, I'm an art collector and I want to store some art. And they show me inside this carousel. And they said, we only have one vacancy.
Just like a dry cleaner carousel for artwork, basically?
Well, for containers.
Okay.
Like imagine shipping containers going around like this.
Wow, okay.
So they bring down the shipping container. It was like, 5 by 10, small. And the per square foot number came out to like $80 annual gross rent. Well, now I'm titillated.
Now we're talking.
Now I'm titillated. So I went back to my 2 CPA partners and I said, I think I know what we should do with this vacant land. And I tell them art storage and they go, well, Dave, we don't know anything about that, but we have a client who's in the self-storage business in a big way. Why don't we get a meeting? So we get a meeting and their client, Todd Ruderman, loved the idea. And we decided to go to New York and meet Global Risk Partners for lunch on 5th Avenue. And over 2 bottles of Brunello, we hired them.
Great choice. Great choice, by the way.
Yeah, it was an Italian restaurant.
Guys do it.
And we end up tasking them with helping us design the finest new art storage facility in the United States, built to their newest and highest specifications. This included vibration sensors in the walls. This included redundant mechanical systems throughout the building. Not 1 inch of the building is not being videotaped on an annual loop. I could go on and on. Biometrics reading to get in and out of one room to another. And we built that in 2000. I thought of it December of 06, broke ground January of 08, 86,000 square feet, completion November of 08.
How much did it cost to build that out?
The construction was only about $11 million hard cost.
And that's with all the security, biometrics, everything.
How did the delivering in November of 08 affect the potentials?
Well, just in time for the worldwide recession.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah.
And fortunately, the banker had given us a big pot of money to draw from so we could ramp up leasing. And he was very helpful in that early on. he was in charge of community development loans. So, and I had known him because he was the only schmuck crazy enough to finance me to build Wynwood Lofts a few years earlier in 2005, the 36-unit condo project in Wynwood. So he was a wonderful guy, Jess Lawhorn, and he gave us a loan that helped us ride that through.
Ride that storm through.
But then his bank got taken over. I think he was with Wachovia, and then maybe it was First Union took it over, something like that. And these guys came from community redevelopment in Atlanta, and they walk in the lobby of the building, and they're like, "Well, where are the apartments?" And I'm like, "There's no apartments here." "Well, what do you do here?" And I had to tell them, like, "Why do we have this loan?" I said, "I don't know, but you fellas better get comfortable because ain't nothing happening with this loan for a while." Because we weren't going to get refinanced out to pay them back.
Right.
We had like 25% occupancy. It was a real struggle the first 3-4. It took me 4 years to really get momentum.
Wow. I'm sure we're humming today.
Oh, we sold it in 2020 January.
Oh, nice.
To a group out of New York called Uovo. So it was a very good deal.
That's awesome.
For the partnership.
Yeah.
So going back, 2 questions. So Wynwood Lofts, was that your first ground up development?
Yes.
Okay, and then the art storage space, what's it called again?
Well, I called it Museo Vault.
Yeah.
But now it's Uovo.
Okay, so Museo Vault, that was your second ground up development?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very, very eclectic. New development projects, right?
And during this whole time that you're buying warehouses, you're building these condo buildings and the art storage, are you still selling real estate on the beach?
Yes.
Wow. So you're all over the place.
And I was really busy at those years with Todd Glazer. I was doing a lot of deals with Todd.
By the way, we're trying to get Todd on this podcast. Maybe you can
He
twist
loves
it.
this.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not shy.
Can you convince him to come on to the podcast?
Of course.
Yeah, we'd love to get him on here. We've harassed him. He's pretty hard to get.
We got to get him down here. He's always up in Palm Beach.
Yeah, I know.
He'll come down. He'll take the bright line.
There you go.
He likes the bright line.
Another question. This is going back a little further. What was the impetus of Art Basel coming to Miami? Like,
I would say that it was Norman Brayman, Craig Robbins, perhaps Bonnie Clearwater, who was the director of the MoCA Museum at the time. There were 3 or 4 people who were really instrumental. Probably Rubel, probably, but certainly Craig and Norman Brayman.
Interesting. All right. So now you finish the art storage. What year was that?
2008 November.
And then you're still selling real estate. When did you stop selling real estate? Are you still today selling real estate?
I haven't really been that active in selling real estate in 8 or 9 years.
Okay.
But my son does, Daniel, and occasionally we'll co-list things together.
And so when does the business improvement district in Wynwood start up? Because you were kind of
2013.
Before we get to 13, I want to we touched on it briefly, but the 08 financial crisis, did that affect any of your other holdings in Wynwood or South Beach? Like, how was that?
Almost all of them.
Yeah. It wasn't just the art storage.
No. And I made an enormous blunder around 2006 or 7. I bought 3 acres. Okay. So we made a big blunder around 2006 or 7. We bought 3 acres of land, which you might know as the Wynwood Marketplace today.
Oh, yeah.
In the front of Mana's, in front of the old foreign trade zone.
Yeah. Right where Dr. Smoot used to be, right?
Next, just
Right there.
north.
Yeah.
So we bought it with a pretty big seller's note from the seller, and we had half of it pre-sold off to an affordable housing company. But our lawyer gave us some bad advice. There was an easement and operating agreement that ran with the land to the foreign trade zone in the rear, which was in bankruptcy court for a long time. That property was in bankruptcy court like 7 or 8 years to that point. He said it was no big deal. It's not a concern. But then when we went to sell 50% for what we paid for the whole thing to David Deutsch and his company,
That's pinnacle, yeah.
yeah, it became a big deal. And our lawyer had been wrong. And we had to enter the bankruptcy proceedings to get disentangled. And it took several years. And then Moish bought the foreign trade zone at the bankruptcy court. I was there that day.
You were trying to buy it too?
No,
No.
I was tapped out. I
Yeah.
couldn't buy it. He got a great deal. He paid $5 million.
Oh, wow.
He was in corduroy shorts and a macrame sweater with a big rose on it
Love that.
and sandals. And he's sitting in the back row of the court. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Look at this outfit. And the judge, Crystal, who was such an asshole, he says, is anybody here to vote to bid on this property? And I'm thinking maybe University of Miami's there, maybe Related's there. Only this guy. And he raises his hand and they call him up. It looked like he slept at a girl's house and grabbed her sweater on the way out. It was the craziest shit. And he reaches into his pocket and pulls out this crumbled up cashier's check. And he's smoothing it out on the judge's fucking desk on the bench. And
That's awesome.
he says, I'm offering $5 million, Judge. I'm like, I almost fainted sitting there. So I said, I got to meet this lunatic because we're entwined, so we met, we hit it off. And ultimately he bought that land from us. But in between that, we were in trouble and the note was coming due to the seller. And the seller was a lady named Evelyn Greer, who had a reputation as being a really difficult person. She was the mayor of Pinecrest. She was a very successful, accomplished lady. And my partner, one of my investor partners, was a dermatologist, and they had a mutual friend. And the mutual friend, we went to his house in Aventura to get advice, and he says, you guys are fucked. She's going to eat you alive. She's going to kill you. And Stephen, the doctor, was like, I don't know if we should go. I'm like, listen, Stephen, everybody's fucked. The whole world is fucked. Let's go look her in the eyes and offer what we can pay her. Because we owed her like $3 million. And between Gibraltar Bank offering us $1 million and to help us in a note, and we had $1 million, we could offer her $2 million. So we went to her and she says, so you finally came to see the dragon lady, huh? And I said, look, Evelyn, we don't know each other. I said, but if you're looking at the world today, we're all in trouble. I can give you back this land. It'll be like ice cube melting in the sun. Or you can take a third off, take $2 million. We can give you that in a week and we'll be done. And you'll be done. And she looked up at the ceiling for a moment and she goes, you're right. We're all in trouble. I'll take it.
Wow.
And that was it.
Brought your sword to slay the dragon lady.
Yeah, but she was lovely. And now we see each other and we give hugs and yeah.
That's awesome.
Because the key to success in real estate in Miami or anywhere really is you have to be a person of your word. The guys from Atlanta who kept coming to Museo Vault, pissed off and angry, when we paid them off with Northern Trust gave us a loan, they took us to dinner. And at dinner, they said, listen, the only reason we didn't engage our attorneys and try to kill you guys is because every time we asked for data, you gave us everything. We never had to chase you or ask you a second time. It was kimono open.
Yeah.
You just,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that.
it's the only way to be.
Yeah.
No point in playing games. It's going to catch up to you anyway.
Exactly. And then you get a bad reputation.
Yeah.
And then people don't want to deal with you, which in our business, there's a lot of assholes
Yeah.
nobody wants to deal with.
Yep.
A lot of pretenders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you get that reputation, ugh,
Yeah.
then you might as well move.
Exactly.
But after Miami, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, right? Best city in the world, right, David?
That's it.
Ben, you and I are all about PropTech. And if there's one tool we absolutely cannot live without for a commercial real estate brokerage business at Gridline Properties, it's Visda.
Absolutely. Vista is incredible. We use it every single day. And we're always wondering, how do they do this? Every evening we get an email from them with real-time closed transactions. No more waiting around for months for the property appraiser to finally update.
Yeah, whether you're doing industrial, retail, office, land deals, they have every closed transactions. And it's not just the speed, Ben. The details are on point. Seller and buyer info, contact details, phone numbers, emails, everything is accurate.
It's hands down our top prospecting tool to farm for warehouse deals in Hialeah. Visda keeps us one step ahead always. It's also the best way to search for comps when putting together opinions of values for clients.
Head on over to Visda.com and use code BuiltWorld and get 30 days free access today. VIZZDA.com.
So we started getting into it. The bid, I think, is so interesting. Like, what was the impetus for the bid? Was that, did you see that somewhere else? Did that exist somewhere else in Miami before? Because I hadn't really ever been exposed to it prior to Wynwood.
Yeah, and let's give some of our listeners a background. What is a bid too, just so
Sure.
we have.
So I didn't know what a bid was until 2010. Tony Goldman, may he rest in peace, we were at a meeting together, and he said something like, listen, after I'm gone, because he knew he was sick, he says, you're not going to need this WADA anymore. You'll end up making a bid, and you'll have plenty of money to do things. I'm like, I'm sorry, Tony, what the fuck is a bid? So it's a business improvement district. And what it is it's a border, an area of properties where you get those owners to vote, and you need a 50% plus one to be successful. And then you create a taxing district there where you actually tax yourselves above the normal Miami-Dade and City of Miami property taxes, another allocation, but that money goes into a pot and is used specifically for initiatives only in that district. And I was one of the 7 founding members back then.
Who were the other members?
After
List them all, Joe.
after 2 old fashions, I'm going to try my best. So from Goldman Properties, it was Joe First. There was Irving Lerner, who is David Lerner's father. Eli Matrani, David Polinsky, Albert Garcia. Are you counting?
Yeah.
I lost track.
We're at 4 or 5.
No, I think we're higher than that. But, and me. And I apologize if I'm forgetting someone. But that was about it.
Yeah.
And, it was
So those are kind of like the Wynwood OGs.
the Wynwood OGs,
Yeah.
and it was a big lift.
Yeah.
Imagine we had to look at a map of Wynwood, and to us, Wynwood was 29th to 20th, the railroad tracks to I-95. But when, in those days, in 2012, when you looked at that, we pretty much knew we weren't going to get the Korean merchants to jump on board of this plan.
And why is that?
They were not interested in being part of a whole of anything. They were very exclusive and intrinsic, and they didn't like to communicate with us at all about the future or a vision for the neighborhood.
Are they still there, by the way? They were like the Fifth Ave Mafia, weren't they?
Right. I mean, God bless them. They did well there.
They killed it, yeah.
But I would say that 85% of them have now moved on.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, but we knew Fifth Ave was going to be our end. So we have the east side of Fifth Ave, but not across.
Got it.
And actually, I don't even think we have the east side of Fifth. We have one folio east of Fifth
Okay.
is where the bid ends. But we have 400 folios in the bid boundaries. And it's been a very big success because the first initiative, as I said, was the increase in zoning, the NRD 1 overlay, which is why you see 12-story buildings on the main corridors, 8-story buildings on the others. and you see hotels and all the apartments
And
and
who,
office.
who helped with this overlay? Was that Steve Wernick? Was Steve Wernick involved in that?
Steve Wernick was involved, but also the planning director at the time, whose name I may not remember, Javier perhaps. He was terrific. He was a real proponent for us, and Wernick was also working on our behalf.
Because that whole area, was it D1 or was it T680?
It
It wasn't 8.
It wasn't.
There's only 5 now.
It was T5
It was-
and D1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you guys basically got a density bonus and a height bonus with
Yeah,
this overlay.
it was 36 units per acre or 65. But back when I built Wynwood Lofts, I built 36 units on half an acre. And it was a tremendous success. We sold out upon completion.
No parking, right?
Had parking on the ground.
Okay.
See, imagine when I designed that building in 03, never did I dream of putting retail on the bottom of that building. There wasn't a place to get a sandwich
Yeah.
in Wynwood back then.
Hmm.
I was building for people who were going to live like Batman.
Yeah.
They pulled in, the door closed behind them in the garage, and they went up to their loft. That was it. So, the way it's evolved has blown me away.
I didn't realize that building was that old. It looks way newer than that.
05.
That looks like a 2015 or something. It's
Yeah, but,
if not newer.
You know which building it is?
Yeah,
250 Northwest 23rd?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Because I designed it to look and feel like an old factory building.
Yeah.
So when we were first walking people through, the biggest compliment was, "What year was this building built?" I says, "Fucking brand new." But yeah,
That's great.
so
So the Wynwood's the bid's first initiative was really getting this overlay. And
Yes.
So that was kind of and that took how long to pass?
I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Probably no more than a year and a half.
Okay. So by 2015, the overlay was in place.
Yeah.
And that's when is that when things really started accelerating in terms of redevelopment?
I don't think so. I think it took a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but
I mean, that's only 10 years ago.
the first building that got built after Wynwood Lofts was David Polinsky's 250 Wynwood.
That's what I was thinking of.
That one, yeah.
That one, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so that one,
That's what I was thinking of.
yeah,
250
very nice.
Wynwood, yeah.
He was a decade after me,
Okay.
after Wynwood Lofts. So imagine, he built in 15, but he was way ahead of the rest of the pack.
Yeah.
And then Related and everyone else followed suit.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank God.
It looks so different now.
Oh, yeah.
I almost get lost driving around Wynwood today because
Yes,
it's so different without all the single family homes and
Right.
everything else just gone. It's insane what's happened there.
yeah.
Has it surpassed what you ever thought it would do? I mean, what's it like today?
Yeah, I think so.
It's-
I think it definitely has. But I'm very focused now. In December, I became the chairman of the bid
Oh wow.
now.
So
So-
you're back spearheading the board.
I'm back. I was off for 7 years.
Yeah.
And I reached a point, Where-
Why did you come out of retirement?
well, so I wasn't liking where the direction of the neighborhood was going. And I'm a grandfather now, and I'm not hustling houses like I had been. And I have a little more time. My kids are really running the office and the business. So I decided I'm going to give it 2 years. And I have a very specific set of goals that I want to achieve in those 2 years. And, I hit the ground running. I'm very aggressive.
What are those goals?
So I want to implement the streetscape master plan that was designed, maybe 8-9 years ago by Architectonica.
What does that mean?
I want to line the streets with trees and lighting. We're going to start with Northwest 2nd Avenue, and then we're going to do North Miami Avenue, and then we're going to do the cross streets.
That'll make a huge impact.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of I think what Design District feels so nice about.
Yes.
The lighting and the treescape.
Exactly.
Makes a big difference.
So I have the surveyor has completed 2nd Avenue. We should have that by the end of next week. We have Architectonica giving us a proposal for preparing the plans to implement the plantings and lighting for Northwest 2nd and North Miami. And my hope is that by the end of the summer, we're in for permit.
What kind of trees you guys going to plant?
So It's a
So
very.
it's so important, right?
This is the gardener. This is the gardener and Felipe coming live.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the conundrum that we
I
have.
hope it's not all palm trees, David.
Well, no, but this is a fucked up conundrum. Wynwood consists of avenues that are controlled and owned by the county,
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I know.
Northwest 2nd and North Miami. And then the streets, east-west, are the city. The city allows for much better shade trees than the county, which calls for palms because in their mind they want skinny trunk palms. So if a car loses control and hits it, the palm snaps and doesn't, cause the car to be a further worse impact.
It's fucking crazy, right?
It's fucking crazy. So now we're really in the weeds.
Yeah.
So there's a lady named Jane Gilbert who I was in communications with as of yesterday, who is the director of heat in Miami-Dade County.
She's like the chief resilience officer or something
Exactly.
like that, right?
So I'm hawking her, we need shade on these north-south corridors, and she's going to get back to me.
And no one's driving fast enough on Northwest 2nd to crash into a tree anyway.
Probably not, but we want to put in speed tables also.
You're going to hit 10 people before you hit that tree anyway.
Right. But we want speed tables on Miami Avenue,
Yeah.
on Northwest
Good
2nd
idea.
Avenue.
Yeah.
So just talking about this, because I think this is really important, right? Because streetscape design is so important.
Yes.
And just for retail, but for pedestrians too, having the shade trees. Like if you really want people to walk around, they have to feel safe.
Yes.
And that
clean and safe.
clean, safe, and they have to. I mean, the elements are real here, right?
I mean, look at Nemo. Nemo has this exact problem. There's narrow sidewalks, giant palm trees in the middle of it. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah. So, you really need to have shade trees. You need to have traffic calming.
Yes.
Protection between the sidewalk and the streets so that people feel comfortable walking when cars are moving quickly. So this is a great initiative, David. Changing the streetscape in Wynwood is just going to bring the neighborhood to another level.
Without question. And the last board, which left November, they only met 4 times last year, which infuriated me. So I've been having 2 a month since December. We're having another one on Tuesday at 1 p.m. But I have a lot of different initiatives, and we're putting out a new marketing and PR RFP through procurement of the city next week. We hired a social media and content creation company headed by this guy, Pablo Delgado, Social for Wynwood. He is doing magnificent content, doing a great job for us. He started in November. And we're also trying to buy this piece of property behind Grail's Bar, which the city will be the owner of, but we'll use public trust fund benefit funds for it to make a dog park. Because when you have 3,000 new apartments and almost everybody in there has a dog, we're dealing with dog shit on the sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera. So we're putting out the baskets and the bag dispensers, and we have a campaign called Do Your Duty, DOODY, clean up after your pet. But I want to create a dog park there, and we're going to spend probably $3.5 million just to buy the property, and then probably another, $500,000 between demoing the existing building and recreating this park there. But I think all of these are important, necessary investments, because the neighborhood now south of 29th Street never was intended to be a dense residential area. So that's another initiative of mine. We've committed a lot of dollars where the entire district is being recorded on camera. We put in hundreds of cameras over the last 3-4 years in the neighborhood. We gave grants to buy horses, so we have Winnie and Woody, these horse patrols in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's just one thing after another. As soon as I got in,
That's great.
Why the horse patrols? I always wondered that in urban environments. Why are horses better?
So the guy on top of a horse has a tremendous range of vision
Yeah.
down the street
Oh, that makes
that
sense.
you don't have on foot
Or on a
or in
motorcycle.
a car or a
bike.
motorcycle.
Yeah.
So it's very beneficial.
Plus, they don't care about curbs or anything. They can climb
Exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And they can get through a narrow space.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we've added 36 trash cans in the neighborhood. It's a lot of details.
So how many square feet of real estate do you own in Wynwood, more or less?
So I never think of it that way, but I own 7 buildings.
Okay.
All
right. Are you... so going back to South Beach, have you sold any of those buildings on South Beach?
All of them by 2003.
Oh, wow.
You sold all those apartment buildings?
Yes.
Taxman.
And I put all the money into Wynwood.
Wynwood.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. By 2004, we were all investing in Wynwood.
That's amazing.
I used to own a lot more of Wynwood than I do today. But I was really good at creating assemblages, but I was not the guy who was going to build the 300-unit apartment complex. So I sold to Lennar, where Wynwood Yard was.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I
used to go there for concerts all the time.
It was fabulous.
Yeah.
And then I sold more recently where Morgan's Restaurant,
Sure.
CrossFit was on 29th over there.
You sold that to the Ojedas, right?
Ojedas.
Yeah.
Lovely family.
Yeah. Alan's been on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The dad.
The dad.
Very nice man.
Yeah. He really nice guy.
What I liked about them too is they came into my office, they looked me in the eye,
Yeah.
they shook my hand. They were very honest, straight. They did everything they said.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. What about Wynwood Norte? That's been a lot of big buzzword like in the last 5-10 years. Do you play around in that area at all or not?
I don't, but we certainly applaud them and are cheerleading for them. The thing that I think we can work on together is the exit from I-95 onto 29th Street.
Yeah.
Many years ago, there had been one. And 10, 11 years ago, myself and Albert Garcia lobbied the county commission that they need to do that again. And it had been part of the scope of work of this 395 flyover, but I heard they extracted it from the budget.
There's an exit from 95 to 29th?
Yes.
Interesting.
Many years ago.
Okay.
And think about how great that would be now.
Well, it'd be amazing because 112 to 30
backs up.
to Miami Avenue is a disaster.
It backs up all the time.
Yeah.
So 29th is a natural.
That
It
makes
can be
sense.
done. And these guys in charge of the roads really need to look at it.
Is there still a space there for an off ramp?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they dispense onto 6th Avenue
Okay.
is the way they would do it.
Do you think Fifth Avenue will ever get built up? That always seems like you admire architecture and streetscapes, and Fifth Avenue to me seems like it should have been like the center focal point of Wynwood, given the tree-lined median in the middle.
And I think Tony Goldman had that vision, right?
Yes.
When he first started buying in there as well.
bought
I think
in there.
Jared first said that to us.
Oh, did he?
Podcast. Yeah.
It's true. No, Fifth Avenue is the most beautiful avenue in
Yeah.
Wynwood, but it's hard to get to. And when you get there, at the moment, it's so forlorn
Yeah.
that it's not interesting or inviting.
Yeah, it's just like smoke shops and it's like the back street, right?
No, and 2 whole blocks got demoed and nothing's happening with them.
Oh, by Pastis, yeah. By Pastis, yeah.
Yeah. So
But that it just feels geographically like that should be so much more
it
prominent.
could be amazing.
Yeah. Maybe sometime down the road.
Physically and structurally, it's the best street in Wynwood.
Right. Just not there yet.
Most pedestrian friendly. Yeah.
And what's holding that up? Is it all the Korean ownership? Well, you said the Koreans' ownership is kind of left, but maybe
They
just
kind of left, and look, I look at certain individual owners as responsible, for the demise of Fifth Avenue.
Mm.
They need to get together and come up with a common vision and clean the shit up, because it's a mess.
What's going on, Builties? Ben and Felipe here. I wanted to cut in and tell you guys what we're working on. Believe it or not, podcasting is not our full-time gig. We're commercial brokers here at Gridline Properties, focused on industrial. And we've really identified the submarkets of East Hialeah, Opelika, and Golden Glades.
Yeah, we're big believers in those areas. The industrial warehouse space has grown tremendously in the last few years, particularly out west. The developers have been building product in the 100,000 square foot range. These areas, particularly Opelika, East Hialeah, and Golden Glades, have smaller warehouses, and we think those are going to do extremely well in the next 10, 20, 30 years. There's always going to be a need for small businesses and smaller spaces close to the urban cores, so we're extremely laser focused on these areas. So if you have a warehouse in the area or looking to buy or lease, or if we can help you lease or sell your property, reach out to us.
Yeah, we're just seeing a lot of value in that area. Everyone's getting priced out of Doral, getting priced out of Little River and Wynwood, and Hialeah is kind of the last frontier. And it's a wild west out there. So come on for a ride with us. Hit us up.
Yeah.
That's not Moish over there, is it?
He's one of them.
He's one of them?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's one of the biggest.
Because people are always giving him shit for Flagler, too. Downtown.
I'm completely perplexed at his lack of inactivity with owning all this property throughout Miami.
Yeah, it is a shame, right? I mean, especially downtown, more so I think than Wynwood. I mean, he has so much property there, and you know, it's just completely dilapidated down there.
Yeah,
and
you know, code enforcement is a responsible landlord's best friend, but I don't know where they are in relation to the downtown.
yeah.
Land banking.
So what else? So you own property, and do you want to talk about something else too?
Well, I was just going to ask him, are there any neighborhoods in Miami that you're seeing that remind you of Wynwood 20 years ago? Like, is there anywhere?
I don't know that Wynwood could be replicated. However, where I see a lot of potential is Little River.
Sure.
In 2006, I bought 2 buildings at 83rd and Northeast 2nd, and ultimately the Citadel came in across the street. But I really liked the physicality of Northeast 2nd from 79th up to the city limit there.
Does the city limit the river?
Yeah.
Where El Portal starts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that strip
Yeah.
a lot.
It's awesome.
But that's really small, right? Like it's not.
It is.
It's not a.
But even south of there,
Yeah.
by the MacArthur Dairy, there's a pocket.
Yeah.
There's a Padel place, and there's some funky tenancies going in, and AJ Capital with Sunny Steak
And Swerdlow over there going to
Gucci and
Veggie.
Swerdlow going in. I think all of that's going to be the next very hot area.
And you mentioned MacArthur Dairy. Across from there's a lot of government housing, which I think also existed in Wynwood. Is all that still there in Wynwood? Those like duplexes that were like...
Yeah,
It still is, but it's all boarded up. I drive by there every day.
some of it's boarded up, and this is a conversation I'm having with the county at the moment because they're missing a tremendous opportunity. You know, I sit on the Public Trust Fund Benefit Board with Scott Sherman from Toros.
He was here a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
So Scott's the chairman of that board, and I'm on it. And we've allocated $4 million to one project, $3 million to another one. The lesser one is finished now. Wynwood Works, next door to Cush.
Yep.
120 truly affordable units in Wynwood. The county is missing the opportunity because of our zoning overlay. A place that has 2 units could have like 16 units. So they could create maybe 150 units in
those 2
properties
units.
they have sprinkled between North Miami and Northwest 2nd Avenues, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th Streets. They need to put out an RFP and bring in a developer to do a lot more affordable units because our dream for Wynwood is live, work, play. The same people working in Pastis and Sparrow and Uchi, we want them living there too, because when gas is $3.50, $4 a gallon, and the mass transit's terrible, we don't want them having to drive in from Miramar, Pembroke Pines, Kendall, and pay big money for parking. We want them living and working and playing in the same district.
And with the Live Local Act, you can probably do even more dense.
Yeah, I don't know if that really pencils out. We'll have to see if anything happens.
You mean on those duplex sites?
On Live Local in general. I've heard a lot of talk about it, but I haven't really seen anybody go forward with a project.
We're building one right now.
Where?
54th and 7th Avenue.
So, amazing.
Kind of close.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, the big benefit there is slightly more dense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the tax break is the big one
Yes.
because we get 75% real estate tax abatement.
Right.
So that helps pencil. But
Amazing.
But the yield on cost number is still that magic number everybody wants to see, and we're eking it out right now. But
Well, the damn construction costs are so high.
yeah, I mean, even if the land is free, it's
Yes.
hard to hit.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So, are you still a buyer or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're buying. We're under contract to buy 5 buildings in Little River at the moment.
Okay.
Warehouses.
Cool.
We're excited about
Yeah.
it.
That's cool.
Bullish.
So you're still bullish on Little River.
It's in the path of
yeah.
progress.
And but you really don't go anywhere outside Wynwood to city limits, El Portal.
You trying to sell them some Hialeah warehouses? Or?
So I'm curious.
We own a public center in Fort Myers. We own a public center in Kissimmee.
Okay,
So, certain triple net situations will buy
gotcha.
far away, but no, look, we're investing in a development of some small bay warehouses in Hialeah
Oh, nice.
right now with a group.
Building these small bay warehouses.
Yeah, these guys are very proficient at
I
that,
like this.
that we're investing with.
Big company.
No,
Okay.
but some guys who they're a small company, but they worked for a big company
Got it.
developing enormous Class A warehouse.
That's definitely where we see the opportunity, especially in a market like Hialeah's, because those small bays you're getting way higher rents than anywhere else.
Yes,
Um,
for sure.
and Hialeah's kind of hit a plateau in pricing just because pricing got so outpaced in the last few years, and rents haven't really caught up, but they have caught up in the small bay space.
Right.
So that's cool.
Yeah, I feel
And
good about
this is penciling out.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know any idea what the construction costs are on these small bay warehouses?
I don't.
Yeah.
I let my sons be the micro guys, and I'm the macro guy.
All right. We'll talk about this offline because this is something that we've talked about.
Well, that's close to our hearts right here.
Right.
Yeah.
What's next for Lombardi Properties?
So, we're building the Doris. We have another project on 29th Street at 161 Northwest 29th that got approved at WDRC that we're now formulating full sets of plans to submit for permit. 12-story office building, very sexy. The buildings in Little River we're going to buy. And, I have 2 grandsons coming this summer
Wow.
being delivered.
2 grandsons this summer.
Yeah.
First
Wow.
two?
No, we have 4 grandchildren.
Wow.
Right now, I have 3 granddaughters and a grandson. And now we're going to have 2 more grandsons.
And
Those-
all your kids are in the business, right?
Yes.
How old are your kids?
Daniel is 36. Brian is 34. No, I may have this wrong. No, Daniel is 34. Brian 32 and Brooke 30.
Okay.
And Brooke is, we're expecting an engagement over the summer and a wedding in the fall.
Okay.
You hear that, Brooke? You better be getting engaged this.
Yeah.
More so. Do you hear that, Jordan? Yeah, Jordan's
That's
got to
awesome.
get moving.
2 grandkids this summer. Those 2 are going to be
2 brisses.
thick as thieves, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're going to be causing trouble.
Because we have 3 granddaughters now and a grandson. And that grandson, at his bris, I had 250 chocolate penises made by my chocolate tenant under my office,
I love it.
Ben B. Coco.
That
These
chocolate
beautiful
is,
little penises.
that chocolate is no joke.
He's the best.
Oh, it's so good.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
I love curating tendencies, by the way.
It makes a big difference when
That's
you
my-
actually give a shit.
It's one of my passions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quick question. You look like you're a pretty healthy guy. What do you do to stay fit?
So every day I walk between 2 and 4 miles, depending on the morning.
Yeah.
I try
Where do you walk? In South Beach?
usually around Sunset Island,
Yeah.
down to Sunset Harbor and back.
Okay.
That new park I was there this morning, by the way, looks incredible.
Yeah, the Maurice Gibb Park.
It's beautiful.
I played there with my grandkids
It's beautiful.
twice. Yeah. And I try to stop eating in the evening by 7:30, and I don't have breakfast till 9. So 13, 14 hours.
So really, walking is what you like to do.
Yeah, push-ups,
Yeah. You just
planks.
Yeah. Look at that. Huh?
I get stretched every week.
Yeah.
Swim. I like to swim.
Swim. Laps.
Swimming's good. Yeah.
Or in the ocean.
No, in the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And what's your typical day look like? What time you get up?
I get up at 7:15.
All right.
Coffee
Coffee
I'll make
drinker?
the bed because the wife doesn't make the bed.
Yeah.
and then I'll walk until about 8:15. Then I'll come back. I'll put on tefillin. I don't know if you know what those are,
No.
but I do my morning prayers with the leather straps. And then by 9 a.m., I'll make breakfast.
Okay.
Either overnight oats with lots of berries or scrambled eggs with gluten-free toast and avocado.
All right.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's my breakfast too.
And then I get to the office by 10:30.
Okay.
Where's the office? Is it in Wynwood?
Wynwood. Yeah. We have a great office.
You ever gonna retire?
I hope not.
Yeah.
I enjoy my kids. I enjoy the tenants, the interaction, because I like being around young, creative people.
Yeah.
We created this co-working space, Doris Den, and it's focused mainly on young entrepreneurs in fashion and design. So we have little clothing brands, little bikini, bathing suit brands. We have jewelers. We have cosmetic cream brands. And I just love the energy with these people.
Very
Are
cool.
we taking Venetian or 112 to Wynwood?
112.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little quicker.
Yeah. Oh my God. From where I live, I'm on the highway.
The scenic side's kind of nice
62nd.
sometimes. Sometimes I'll just do that just for fun.
The Venetians?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to throw
Well,
it in.
now it's going to be a clusterfuck, right? They're redoing the sewer lines and then the bridges.
It's always a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
It's always a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Well, David, this is awesome, man. Thanks for joining us. What an incredible story.
Pleasure.
Mr. Wynwood himself.
Congratulations.
I'm a very lucky guy. I met my wife in 10th grade.
She's still putting up with you, huh?
And she wouldn't date me till 12th grade,
Yeah.
but I've had a beautiful life so far.
That's great, David.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Cool. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Cool.
seriously. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Have a great afternoon, David.
You too. Thank you.